having, sorry, I forgot to press record. My bad. And it's about women's stories from trauma to triumph, and it's about sharing how we can all live our best lives and be, because after trauma, it's a very hard thing to recover from. It can be a long road to heal on that process. And so I wanted to do Heal with the Real, a podcast that can just share all the triumphs of strong survivors of any domestic abuse. And Fix Your Future was the book that I wrote. And this was what inspired me to do Heal with the Real. So welcome to my podcast. I'm so excited to find out about everything, your journey that you went on. So yeah, if you want to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about, is helping women realize that there is a future for them, even if they have been in an abusive relationship. And for me, my power has come from finding me. I think that when we're in abusive relationships, and mine, I'm a 3-time survivor, each one seemed to progressively get worse. Yeah. So I took my power back. And once I did that, I realized that nobody could hurt me again. And even though we have the thoughts that go back to, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve. Once we can kick those negative thoughts to the curb, then we can start moving forward and really find our power and enjoy what life has to offer us.
Yeah, amazing. And that is so true. And it's all that inner work. For me, it was all that inner work. So let's go right back to, your story. Where are you starting from? Are we starting from young? How old?
I was 16.
Okay.
And the story is, I was going to be babysitting my mom's friend's son for the summer. So she and I went to the grocery store, and I'd consider myself an ugly duckling in the teenage years. I was awkward. I played sports. I wasn't the girly girl. And a lot of my girlfriends were dating and I wasn't. And so we were leaving the store, getting ready to load the groceries, and this car drove up with a bunch of guys, and they started tooting and doing the cat calling, and I'm like, whatever. And my mom's friend said, Cherie, I think they are calling to you. I'm like, why me? I'm not attractive. There's no reason. And they actually were. The guy in the car called me over. Dark hair, dark eyes, long hair, very attractive, like the romance novel cover, right? Like, looking at him like, oh my gosh. And he asked for my phone number and we started talking. Unfortunately, I was too young and too naive to understand that what my parents were trying to tell me, that he was no good. He was kicked out of school for fighting. He was doing drugs. But for me, it was the first guy that showed me attention. And so I was just drawn to him. And we dated for 2 years. And the relationship progressively got worse, from him saying he wanted to spend time with me. And I thought, oh, that's cool. He wants to be with me. But what I didn't realize, it was him starting to groom me to only wanting to be with him. And eventually he would pull me away from my friends. He pulled me away from my family. And even school events, I was in the band front, and we were going to a competition, and he wanted to get on the bus. He wasn't a student of the school.
How old was he?
He was 17. So he was a
Okay.
year older.
Okay.
And he just wanted to be on there. And the teachers are like, sorry, you can't. And that embarrassed me, but I continued because I was yearning for this love. Yeah. I wanted him to like me. I wanted other people to say, oh, Cherie has a boyfriend.
Can I just go back to something that you said right at the beginning when he saw you and you didn't think he was looking at you because you didn't feel beautiful? Was there anything in your past that had made you feel that way, that you weren't beautiful? Anything, in your childhood?
I don't think so. I just was a tomboy.
Yeah.
And I think that seeing my girlfriends dating and why weren't the guys in my class attracted to me? And I had a ton of friends that were guys, but no one was interested in me. So I felt like I was just this ugly duckling, that I was not pretty enough for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then how did the relationship progress after that?
He told me that I was not allowed to be with my friends. My parents, we went on a vacation like every normal family does, and he wanted to come along. And my parents were like, absolutely not. This is a family vacation. And I wanted so badly to be with him that I ruined our family vacation. I became so obsessed with making him happy and wanting him to not be sad that I sacrificed Cherie, and I sacrificed my family, and I sacrificed my friends. But my mind felt like I was doing the right thing. Yeah. I was too young to know any different.
Yeah, definitely.
It was,
and you're getting lots of attention. You're at that age, you may be starting your hormonal cycle and all these things are going on. Yeah, I completely get that. Okay. Yeah. So what was the next stage?
Well, I ended the relationship and I was starting to feel good again. Yeah. And I dated a guy who was normal. He was in the service. I met him at a friend's house and we dated for 2 years. But he was a good guy. Like there was nothing wrong with him. But I think that for me, I didn't feel I was good enough for him. I had been through this previous relationship. I was still trying to heal. Here's this guy who, he actually proposed to me. I just didn't feel I deserved him. And we ended the relationship. And then I met a guy that I worked with, and he, again, dark hair, dark eyes, and we just became friends. We talked about past and relationships, but I was very drawn to him. And we ended up getting married, and he didn't show any signs of the obsessiveness or possessiveness. He was just an average guy. But then he started drinking. His brother moved in with us. His brother was acting very inappropriately towards me. And my husband was saying, oh, that's normal. That's not normal. And then I decided on our year anniversary that I was going to leave him. I could not live the way we were living. And that's when his abuse started, because he lost control of me. I was moving out. He could no longer be with me. And he stalked me. He broke into my apartment, attempted to rape me, climbing up a ladder to try to get in my window. So his abuse was very different than the teenage love, the guy who, didn't quite understand or mature enough in his brain to understand how you treat a lady.
Yeah.
And now I've got this gentleman who was older than me and became just a completely different person. And the day that he attempted to rape me, I ran to my next door neighbor, who was a guy I graduated with. He and his wife lived next door, and he tried to find him and he couldn't. And I never heard from him again. That was it. I think that he knew if he tried something, that something bad could happen to him.
Yeah. So with the stalking, were you always on edge? Were you always worried? What was that like?
Yeah, the first time that he stalked me, I was leaving a bar with friends, and I left early. And when I walked out to my car, he was there. Like, he just appeared out of the darkness and wanted to talk to me. I was saying, hey, we have to talk. I don't want to get divorced. I need you. I love you, blah, blah, blah. And knowing that I had nowhere to go, I was too far from the restaurant, and I couldn't get in my car. And thankfully, a patron came out and scared him off. So from that moment of knowing that at any time he could pop out, I was careful everywhere I went.
Yeah.
And I started having panic attacks. When I moved into my apartment, I was afraid to leave the house. I, would call my parents and say, I'm coming over. If I'm not there in 15 minutes, come find me, because I didn't know if he would run me off the road or be in my car, just terrifying.
Yeah, it's the worst feeling, isn't it? Knowing that somebody's stalking you or watching you, or that, you just don't know what's going to happen next. And you're just in that panic all the time, aren't you? Wow. Okay. So you've left this person, you've divorced. What happened next?
Yes, we got divorced, and we met up just by accident many, many, many years later. And he apologized for acting inappropriately. And he was very genuine. I believe that he knew that he was wrong. He had moved on, he was in another relationship. He had a daughter. So I think maybe something's connected for him, that, hey, what I did was wrong. And it felt good to hear him apologize, but it doesn't ever take away the pain that occurred during the relationship, because he damaged my self-esteem and my confidence. And just saying, I'm sorry for what I did, I can forgive. I'm not going to forget. That was very painful. And I think a lot of women who've been through trauma can understand that. There's, those thoughts of, well, the next guy's going to be a dummy too. And, they're going to treat me the same way. And when am I finally going to meet my prince and be treated the way I should be treated? So we divorced, and I met another guy. He's actually the dad to my son, and his abuse was the worst of them all, because he knew what he was doing from day one. And unfortunately, I saw the signs, but I was so far down on the chain of feeling like crap about myself. I easily was like, oh, you want me? Okay, that's great. No one else is going to want me. I've been in these relationships. And so we ended up dating for a little while. We got married, and he had an addiction to pornography. And he was at clubs, bringing movies home, and really distancing himself from me. And the more he distanced himself, the more obsessive he became of what I wore, how I dressed, when I left the house, who I was talking to. He would question me, and I had a full-time job, and he had a full-time job, but he was allowed to do what he wanted. I was not. And then we got pregnant with Justin, and his abuse.
Now
Justin he'll be 26
next
month, or next week, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. And my ex was having blackout rages where he would yell at me and threaten me, would slam knives down on the counter. He would it was horrible, the yelling and a lot of fear. He instilled a lot of fear in me. And I finally had enough. We had Justin. He was 3 years old. I had contacted a lawyer. because his parents were of no help. They wanted to coddle him and protect him. I withheld all of this from my family. I didn't want any of them to know what was going on. I was so embarrassed. And I contacted a lawyer. He told me what I needed to do. And the day that I left, I had actually said to my husband, you know, there's something wrong with you and you need help. And you have two choices. You can either commit yourself to seek the help that you need, or I can have you committed. And he hit me and he left for work. And my mom lived about 20 minutes from us and drove past our house every day to work. And she had a mother's instinct. Something was wrong. And she stopped. I told her what happened. She said, pack your things, pack Justin's things. You're gone.
Yeah.
And it was a battle. He still wanted control. Up until a couple of years ago, he was still wanting that control. And it's hard to deal with somebody who they can't see the damage that they've done.
So when you say up until a couple of years ago, how long ago was it you left the relationship?
So I've been in 1999 is when I left him. But because of Justin, you have that connection with this man. Yeah. And he didn't want me to tell him how to act around Justin or what to do with Justin. And so it's probably been 10 years since I've actually had a conversation with him, because he did cut ties with Justin at a certain point, but now he's back. All of a sudden he wants to be in his life. So every day that he wanted to talk to Justin, I'd answer the phone or he would pick Justin up. So he still wanted to have some sort of control in the relationship, even though I'm remarried. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's abusers. Yeah. They want to still be in it. Yeah, well, that's what it is, isn't it? It's around a form of control. And when they've no longer got control, then they'll try in some other way, to get that control. Gosh, okay. So you divorced and left? I divorced. Yes, I left. Yeah. And I decided to try online dating when online dating wasn't a thing. This was in 2000, and I met this wonderful man, and we'll be celebrating 21 years of marriage this August. And he has been a phenomenal man, a role model to Justin. Oh, wow. And it's just, it's incredible. But I brought baggage like we all do. Yeah. And he sometimes pays that price for the trauma that I've been through, because I sometimes I just don't love myself. Yeah. And he's like, Cherie, but my gosh, you're beautiful and I love you and you're incredible. And do you still feel like that now? Is that still a thing? I think sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough for my business or my marriage or my friendships. And that just all stems from the past. Yeah. And I come back out of it saying I'm fine, but there's just these moments, they creep in, it's the bad things that we tell ourselves, right? Because I think that we've become groomed to believe that we're nothing. And I remember my ex-husband telling me, if you leave me, nobody else will want you. You're damaged goods. Yeah. And I believed it. it. I'm not damaged goods. You're the damaged one. Yeah. I just fell for your BS and I played the part. And when we walk away, there is no turning back. I know that a lot of women end up back in their relationships, but if I can give or even miss them as well, some women, don't they? Yes. Because of the trauma bonding that's occurred, when you're in that relationship.
And it's sad sometimes. It's a really difficult road. So I want to know how you became what you became, and your journey to your triumph.
I have to say, I owe a lot of it to my husband, who has held my hand and helped me walk the path of becoming Cherie again. And when I was writing my memoir, and as you probably can relate, there's moments where you're writing it and you're like, I'm not doing it anymore. This is painful and it hurts. And I was writing a chapter and I came downstairs and I sat down beside him and said, I don't think I can do this. And he said, then don't publish it. Just write it for your own health and your mental well-being. And if you decide later to publish it, go ahead. And I said, okay. And I said, I just want to thank you for saving me. And he said, honey, I didn't save you. You saved yourself.
Oh,
and I think that, him being there by my side of showing me that I can be whoever I want to be, and never turning his back on me, and never saying you're nothing. I feel I'm one of the lucky ones who found a man who loved me for me, didn't care about the past, and accepted me for who I am. And once I got that grounding, I knew that I could be whatever I wanted, and becoming this powerful woman in her 50s and helping other women see that whatever they want to do, they can achieve, and to stop believing the negative things we tell ourselves, because that's what holds us back. And it's easier to fall back into a really bad pattern of negative self-talk and not believing in ourselves than walking that path forward and saying that we can do this. And I refuse to accept what happened to me is defining who I am today.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of women hold on to what happened and that defines them, but it doesn't. We take control of who we are today and get to choose every day what we want. We get to choose it. They don't. That past. So yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful every day to be able to share my story and to be an inspiration to other women who really need to see that you can go from this 16-year-old girl who was so hurt and needing love and attention to this powerful 50-year-old who is saying, the world is, this is our world. We can do whatever we want. I feel very strongly about that we should never look back. We can only go forward.
Absolutely. I'm a strong believer in that. The past is the past. If we keep ourselves in the past, we're going to stay depressed. We stay in the present and just live for the moment is definitely my motto, trying not to maybe think too far ahead either, because sometimes you could then become anxious, don't you? But just trying to live in the present moment and be grateful for the things that actually do surround us and be happy for what we have got, I think is so important, isn't it? So tell us about your book as well. How many have you written altogether?
I have my memoir, and then I was a contributing author to 3 other books.
Okay.
And so my memoir is about my journey from it starts off with the wedding of my current husband, and then it flashes back to what happened to me. And then it comes out on the other end of a little bit of my son and his journey. And I've always thought about, writing a second one to kind of talk about where I am today. But I see it as, it is my story, but I think I wrote it so that other women can relate to it. It's like a kind of like a storybook to me. You know, it's this, there is love and there is sadness, but there is power in it too. And I actually wrote it. I had no intention of writing a memoir. I've always wanted to write romance novels.
Okay.
And I was talking to a girlfriend of mine who openly told me she was in an abusive relationship. And then I met another girl at church who told me she was in an abusive marriage. And I thought, you know what? I've been there. I'm going to write this book because I feel that it's my time to share what I have been through, and to show others that you can overcome and be whatever you want. And my other books were just, it's called Power Up Superwoman. And it's just different women talking about their power and their stories. Another one is on mental health. Because of my trauma, I was diagnosed with a panic disorder and I ended up agoraphobic.
Yeah.
And for 1 year, I was a prisoner in my own home. And I had to work very, very hard to overcome those fears.
What
And
were the
those fears,
things, what were the things that you used to do that? Because that is a really hard thing to overcome. You know, if you've got that fear of what, you know, something's going to happen next, because you've talked about that in earlier on, you know, with the stalking and everything, you know, that it's hard, isn't it? So how do you overcome that?
Yeah. And I didn't know what was happening. I just woke up in the middle of the night, one night, panicked. And my husband called 911 thinking I was having a heart attack. And the EMTs told me I was having a panic attack.
Yeah.
I didn't know what is that. And we went to the hospital. They did say that it was definitely anxiety related. I had to quit my job. I was afraid to be home alone with my son. I was afraid to leave the house. I was afraid to cook. I was afraid. And I started therapy, and my husband would take me. And of course I'd be terrified. I would shake the whole way there. But I had little tips and tricks that therapists would teach me that every day it would be just open the door and step outside and step back in, you know, so that you're not overcome with this for 20 plus years. And I started journaling. I started writing about how I was feeling that day and how I want to feel versus, you know, how I'm feeling and what I want to feel. And I had some really good support from my family and my friends. And one day I just had enough of being inside. And I knew that between my house and the grocery store was 20 minutes. And I decided I was going to get in the car, not tell my husband. And when I got halfway, I'm like, Cherie, you either go to the store or you go home. You're halfway, make the choice. And I chose the grocery store.
Yay.
And I had a list of 2 things I needed to get, and it was in the pet food aisle. And I'm standing there with these 2 items, and I called my husband, who freaked him out because I'm on my cell phone. And he goes, where are you? And I said, I'm at the store. He said, what store? And I told him, and he said, you're not in the house? I said, I'm not. And he goes, I am so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. So I checked out, you know, got in my car and drove home. I shook the whole way because I could not believe I did it. But that was it was kind of like my coming out party, right? Like, Cherie, you did this. You're not going to allow the fears of the outside world to affect who you are anymore. And I believe that the traumas that happened to me, the stalking, the fear of being Cherie, the fear of living my own life, just all of a sudden hit me. And I felt like my world was crumbling. And I took my power back. I decided enough is enough. I'm going to do this. And I did it. And all those out there listening, you can too. Like this, you get to choose each and every day when you wake up of what you want to do. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, you can backslide, you know, you can go back to those negative thoughts, but then change it. You know, you get that choice. So
yeah, You do. And just something that you mentioned as well, you started journaling. That is something that I did, and that ended up my book. And I didn't set out in my healing journey, I didn't set out to write the book, but I'd started journaling, and then it all came out on paper. And for me, writing the book was like a page dump where you just got all this out, outside of you and left it in the past. Was writing your book the same for you? Did it feel like that? And how long? Because for me, it took me 6 months before I went public about my book, because I wouldn't talk about it, still for the shame of what will people think. But then I was like, no, this is me. I need to be proud of where I've got. So yeah, I didn't know whether you'd had a similar experience.
I did. I was afraid. I was afraid to publish it because of negative, right? Feedback. Someone might read it and say, wow, you're a really bad author, or your story doesn't make sense, or, whatever that is. But I decided that it was time for me to share my story just to help other women. But I did not, I told people I was writing a book, but I didn't say, hey, it's published. The way that I did it was I had a book launch party with family and friends. They bought my book, and I still didn't talk about it. It was like, okay, it's just them. And I still don't really put it out there, and I should more, but I don't. And I think that there's just that, okay, I wrote a book, and okay, I wrote a book. I don't know.
Proud of that.
Some of those blocks, right? And now I do know that I did receive my ex-husband, his ex-girlfriend has a mutual friend of ours. And she told her about the book. She read the book, and she was a teeny tiny little piece of it. No names wherever, like nobody would know who she is. And she slammed me. It was really hard. It was messages in Facebook and saying I'm a horrible person. And she even gave me negative feedback on Amazon. And so I think that that's your worst nightmare. You write a book and someone is negative, but I really should say that's okay. That's her side. So I think that kind of knocked me back a few, but
yeah.
I shouldn't be afraid to put it out there.
Exactly. And once you stood in your fear and moved forward and got it out there, how did that make you feel?
It was liberating.
Yeah.
I did this. It was this wonderful feeling. There was this feeling of relief that because as you know, when you go through that healing and you bring things back up in your memory, you're reliving it all over again. So you're reliving the trauma, and it takes some time to go through that trauma again to get to the other side. So it's not like sitting down and writing a memoir in 48 hours and putting it out there. There's a lot of healing, but I felt that, and I've read my book over and over again because I like reliving the parts of my journey and knowing where I was and where I am today. And I'm proud of myself.
Yeah.
I'm proud of who I've become. I'm proud, even with me having anxiety and being agoraphobic for a year, I stood on a stage in front of over 350 people at a domestic violence gala.
Yay.
Sharing my story. Was it scary? Yes, but I overcame that because I think that our stories matter, and the more we share it, the more women can leave the abuse and heal from the abuse and know that you're able to do it.
and know that you're in a right relationship, because you know, you now know that you're in a beautiful relationship, and what that should look like, because often when you've been in abusive relationships, you lose sight of what a real relationship should be like. So yeah, awareness is key, isn't it, to share our stories and say there is life after abuse. And actually, whether you're with somebody or not, when you're comfortable with yourself, then it doesn't really matter, you know, and you get used to being able to say, well, I'm on my own, and that's okay as well. I think that's really important.
Yes.
Feeling
Yes.
okay
And
in your
don't,
own skin.
jump, right? I think too that when we're in these abusive relationships, if we haven't healed from one, and I think that was my problem, I went from one to another, and I never took the time to figure out, why did I do that? Why was I attracted to him? I don't want it to happen again. But if we don't stop the cycle and heal, we're not going to find our prince, which I found, and I'm grateful.
Yeah. And it's those lessons. What are those, you know, if you're keeping on repeating and going for the wrong people all the time, you know, I did exactly the same thing. It's what are those life lessons telling us, you know, because we're keeping on making those same mistakes. We need to listen to what these life lessons are saying and learn from them, and start to understand actually what a real you know, loving relationship should look like. And you know, and just being happy being on your own.
Yes. Yes.
Is that what is a day in the life of Cherie? What would you normally do on a daily basis with your healthcare, your self-love, anything, any tips out there for anybody?
Oh my gosh. So I think for me, I'm an animal lover, and we have a lot of cats and a rescue dog. And I love being just in their presence, petting and hearing them purr and playing outside with my dog. And I do try to eat healthy and stay hydrated. I still do journal. Even though there's not a lot of the bad, I am grateful for the good.
Yeah.
And when I go to bed at night, I write 10 things that I'm grateful for the day, because that kind of starts you thinking positively for the next day. And I love nature. So taking walks outside and just feeling grounded. I think that for anybody who's looking for that peace, the peace is within us, but we have to find what makes us happy when we're in that peace. So yeah, I mean, I'm the typical, watching TV and, pick up a good book and, the normal things that we all do. But I think for healing, it really is being grateful and writing that down and just trying to stay grounded and kicking those negative words to the curb when they come in and say, you don't belong here, and move on.
Yeah, and that's our inner child coming out, isn't it? And you know,
Yes.
our ego as well, which keeps you in that fearful place all the time and not moving forward. So what you said, you mentioned you like to read. Is there any particular books that you can suggest on mindset that you've read?
Oh my gosh. There's so many. You caught me off guard.
Don't worry if you can't think of one.
Yeah, I mean, I know that like the affirmations I know are really important. I like the books that you can write in, if there's like something, it makes you think, and then you can write your feelings, like a journal type of thing. I don't have any specific books off the top of my head, but I think that anything really good that, like Chicken Soup for the Soul, like those kind of feel good books.
You mentioned positive affirmations. That was something that I began doing in my healing journey. In front of the mirror, I did lots of mirror work. And I don't know if that was something that you practiced as well.
I did. I didn't in the very beginning because I didn't feel like I had any positive affirmations to share.
Yeah.
But as time went on, and the more that I started repeating those positive words, I started believing them. And I think that's really important for our healing. And I know that there were a lot of people will write them on sticky notes and put them on their mirror. You know, I remember one time I put it in lipstick, and do you know how hard it is to get lipstick off of a mirror?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I'm like, oh, I saw a movie like this, and they're like putting it on. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do that. The next day, I'm like, why did I do that?
Brilliant. Oh, well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to say that we've not talked about, but it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on Heal with a Reel. Is there any last words?
Oh, I just want those of you who may feel like you're at the bottom of the barrel and you're feeling incredibly low and not knowing where to turn, don't allow yourself to go down that rabbit hole of negativity. Choose the positive side, choose life, choose to move forward, choose your power, choose your voice, and just remember that, you are meant to be here and you have the support. Just look for it.
Yeah, and thank you so much. You've been brilliant. It's great to have you on, and it's been lovely to hear your story. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated you having me on.